My brother died 3 years ago, or at least that's what I believed with every fiber of my being. Every single month since then, I've been sending his widow, Jessica, exactly $1,000, money I earned at 42 years old, working double shifts as a construction foreman, pushing my body past its limits until my shoulders ached and my hands cramped. I did it for my nephew, for my late mother's memory, for the promise I made standing at what I thought was my brother's grave. Then one random Tuesday morning, my neighbor, Marcus, caught me loading my truck and said something that made my blood run cold. "Zin, you need to stop sending that money. I saw something last night you won't believe." That single sentence shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, about trust, about the 3 years I'd spent grieving a lie. I'm Zin, and what I'm about to tell you will make you question everyone you've ever trusted. Before this story unfolds completely, I need you to understand something crucial. Right now, someone in your life might be lying to you about something massive, something that's costing you more than just money. Statistics show that 64% of people have been deceived by someone they considered family, and the average financial loss from family fraud exceeds $87,000. I lost more than money. I lost years. I lost my mother to grief. I lost my ability to trust. And if Marcus hadn't stopped me that November morning, I would have lost everything I'd worked my entire life to build. What you're about to hear contains some fictionalized elements for storytelling purposes, but the lessons are devastatingly real, and they might just save you from making the same catastrophic mistakes I made. Seattle in November carries a dampness that seeps into everything. Your clothes, your bones, your soul. The rain doesn't pour. It hangs in the air like a constant reminder that some things never really go away. I was loading equipment into my F-250 at 6:47 a.m., mentally preparing for another 12-hour shift at the Mercer Island construction site, when Marcus appeared beside my truck. Marcus Wilson was retired military, 68 years old, the kind of man who noticed everything and said little. We'd been neighbors for 8 years, shared beers on summer evenings, helped each other with yard work. When he approached me that morning with his jaw set and his eyes serious, I knew something was wrong. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed and gestured to his computer. "Come here. I've been wondering about this myself." He pulled up the security system, navigated to the previous night's footage, and hit play. The timestamp glowed in the corner. November 12th, 2024, 02:26:43. The camera showed the building's north entrance, the hallway leading to the stairs, the elevator doors. For several seconds, nothing happened. Just an empty corridor, fluorescent lights humming silently. Then at 02:27:18, a figure appeared at the edge of the frame. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing a dark jacket and jeans, baseball cap pulled low, face mask covering most of his features. But it was the walk that made my chest constrict. Right foot normal, smooth even. Left foot dragging slightly, not quite lifting all the way. Weight shifting wrong, compensating. Left shoulder dropping with each step. The entire posture tilted, just enough that anyone who knew would recognize it instantly. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. The figure reached apartment 4B at 02:27:51. No hesitation, no knocking. Hand went straight to his pocket, pulled out a key ring, selected one with practiced ease. Door opened. 8 seconds from hallway to inside. The door closed behind him. "He left at 5:42 this morning," Tom said quietly, fast-forwarding the footage. The same figure emerged, same walk, same deliberate movements. This has been happening every month. Zin. Always a few days after the first of the month. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Always the same pattern. Every month. The same timeline as my payments. I sent Jessica $1,000 on the first of every month via direct deposit. And a few days later, this person, my brother, because I knew in my bones it was Ryan, showed up in the middle of the night with a key. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely functioning. I started noticing. About 3 months ago, when I was reviewing footage for the maintenance logs, Tom admitted. I thought about saying something, but I wasn't sure what I was seeing. Wasn't my business. Until Marcus called me this morning and asked me to show you. I watched the footage 5 more times. Each viewing revealed new details that confirmed what I didn't want to believe. The height was right. The build was right. The way he moved his left hand. Slightly stiff from where he'd broken 2 fingers in high school. That was right too. This wasn't some stranger who happened to walk like my brother. This was Ryan, alive, healthy, visiting his wife in secret while I sent money every month believing he was dead. Tom, burned the footage to a USB drive, without me asking. Whatever this is, he said, handing it to me. You're going to need evidence. I sat in my truck outside, Jessica's building, for another hour, the USB drive burning in my pocket like evidence of a crime I couldn't quite name yet. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Did you send this month's payment? I don't see it in my account. Yet. The casual audacity of it made me want to put my fist through the dashboard. I'd sent the payment 3 days ago, same as always. $1,000 I'd earned by working 56 hours the previous week, by skipping meals to save money, by living in a one-bedroom apartment I could barely afford because every spare dollar went to supporting my dead brother's family. Didn't respond to her text. Instead, I called Detective Sarah Chen. Sarah and I went back to college, had stayed friends through marriages, divorces, career changes, and life's general chaos. She worked financial crimes for Seattle PD now, had seen every type of fraud and deception humans could devise. When I explained what Marcus had seen, what the security footage showed, Sarah went quiet for a long time. Zin, she finally said, her detective voice replacing her friend voice, if what you're describing is accurate. This isn't just infidelity or lying. This is fraud. Identity fraud, insurance fraud, possibly theft. If Ryan faked his death and Jessica's been collecting money under false pretenses, you're looking at multiple felonies. I need to know for sure, I said. I need to know if my brother is alive, and if he is, I need to know why he let Mom die thinking he was gone. Give me 24 hours, Sarah said. Don't confront Jessica yet. Don't tip them off. Let me pull some records, make some calls. If Ryan's alive, we'll find proof. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my living room surrounded by photographs of Ryan and me as kids, as teenagers, as adults. Ryan teaching me to drive. Ryan at my wedding. Ryan holding Lucas for the first time. His face glowing with a joy I'd thought was genuine. Every memory felt contaminated now. Every smile possibly a lie. Every moment of connection potentially calculated. My phone rang at 3:47 a.m. Sarah's name on the screen. Tell me, I said. Zin, you need to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I gripped the armrest of my chair anyway. Just tell me, Ryan. Sullivan's death certificate was filed in March 2021 by Kodiak Processing Solutions, an offshore drilling company based in Alaska, Sarah began, her voice clinical, factual. The certificate lists cause of death as accidental drowning, workplace accident, body unrecovered due to severe weather conditions, standard procedure for deaths in remote locations, nothing that would raise immediate red flags. But, I prompted because I could. Hear the but coming, but I ran the company name through our databases. Kodiak Processing Solutions doesn't exist anymore. It was dissolved in December 2022, 18 months after Ryan's supposed death. The listed address in Kodiak is a P.O. box. The phone number is disconnected. The company representative who allegedly filed Ryan's death certificate, a man named David Morrison, doesn't appear in any employment records, tax filings, or business registrations. My hands started shaking. It was fake. The entire company was fake. It gets worse, Sarah continued. I pulled Ryan's financial records for the 2 years before his death. March 2019 to March 2021. Zin, your brother was drowning in debt. $83,000 in credit card balances, $45,000 in personal loans, multiple accounts in collections. He'd borrowed money from at least 6 different sources, all high interest, all overdue. He never said anything, I whispered. He never asked for help. People in that kind of debt often don't. Sarah said gently, they're ashamed. They're desperate. And sometimes they make catastrophic decisions. She paused. I also pulled Jessica's financial records. Want to guess what I found? Tell me, for the past 3 years, Jessica's checking account has received monthly deposits of exactly $1,000. That's your money, obviously. But there's another account, a business account registered under an LLC in Delaware. That account has been receiving monthly deposits of $2,000 for the past 3 years. Same day every month like clockwork. The LLC is registered to a P.O. box. The actual owner is hidden behind corporate paperwork. But I have friends who can dig deeper. I did the math quickly. $1,000 from me times 36 months. $36,000. Plus whatever was coming from that mysterious business account. Another $72,000. Over $100,000. Flowing to Jessica over 3 years. And she'd been telling me she could barely afford groceries. that Lucas needed help with school expenses, that the medical bills from Ryan's accident were crushing her. There's one more thing, Sarah said, and her tone made my stomach clench. I checked flight records, border crossings, financial transactions. 3 months ago, someone matching Ryan's description flew from Vancouver, British Columbia, to Mexico City using a passport under the name Marcus Reeves. The passport photo is grainy, but the physical description matches. 6 feet, 180 pounds. Brown hair, scar above the left eyebrow. Ryan has that scar, I said numbly, from when he crashed his bike as a kid. I know. I was there when it happened, remember? Your mom called my mom, and we all spent the afternoon in the ER. Sarah's voice softened. Zin, I think Ryan faked his death to escape his debts. I think he's been hiding somewhere, probably locally, while Jessica collected money and played the grieving widow. And I think they're planning to run. Run where? I found 2 one-way tickets to Mexico City purchased 4 days ago. Departure date is November 20th. That's 8 days from now. Passengers listed are Jessica Sullivan and Lucas Sullivan. No return tickets. No hotel reservations I can find. They're not planning a vacation. Zin, they're planning to disappear. The room spun. Lucas. They're taking Lucas. Which means we need to move fast, Sarah said firmly. I'm opening an official investigation. I'll need the security footage Tom gave you. I'll need your financial records showing the payments. And I'll need you to not do anything stupid. Don't confront them. Don't warn them. Let me build the case. What about Lucas? I demanded. He's 7 years old, Sarah. He thinks his father is dead. If they take him to Mexico, they won't, Sarah interrupted. Trust me, we're going to stop this before they get anywhere near that airport, but I couldn't. Just sit and wait. After I hung up with Sarah, I pulled out the laptop I rarely used and started digging into the business account she'd mentioned. The LLC registered in Delaware. 3 hours of searching public records, cross-referencing names, following paper trails that were designed to dead end. And then I found it. A single document filed with Delaware's corporate registry, easily missed unless you knew what to look for. The LLC's registered agent, Ryan Marcus Sullivan. My brother had used his full name, the middle name he never went by, probably thinking it was obscure enough to hide behind. But there it was in black and white. Legal proof that Ryan had set up a shell company, that money was flowing through it, that this entire nightmare was meticulously planned. Took screenshots of everything. Then I did something Sarah would have definitely called stupid. I called Jessica. Zin? She answered, surprised. Did you get my text about the payment? I did, I said, keeping my voice calm, normal. Sorry, things have been busy at work. I was actually wondering if I could stop by tomorrow and see. Lucas, it's been almost a month. A pause. I could practically hear her calculating. Tomorrow's not great. Lucas has a dentist appointment. Thursday then? We have plans Thursday. Jessica, I said, letting a touch of frustration enter my voice. I've been sending you money for 3 years. The least you can do is let me see my nephew occasionally. Another pause. Longer this time. Friday afternoon. 4 p.m. Don't be late and don't stay long. Lucas gets overwhelmed. Friday at 4:00, I confirmed. I'll be there. She hung up without saying goodbye, same as always. I immediately called Sarah back. Thought I told you not to do anything stupid, she said by way of greeting. I got us an inn, I replied. Friday at 4 p.m. I'm supposed to visit Lucas at Jessica's apartment, which means Ryan won't be there, because he only shows up in the middle of the night, and it gives you 3 days to prepare whatever you need to prepare. Sarah was quiet, thinking, you know what? That actually might work. Okay, Friday at 4 p.m. You go to that apartment, wear a wire. We'll have plainclothes officers in the building. You get Jessica talking, get her to admit something on tape, and we move in. What about Ryan? We'll have surveillance on the building starting tomorrow. If he shows up, we grab him. If not, we find him through Jessica. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I went to work, framed houses, ran electrical, managed my crew, all while my mind churned through scenarios and possibilities. Marcus stopped by Tuesday evening with a 6-pack of beer and a quiet understanding that I needed. Company without conversation. We sat on my porch watching the rain fall. 2 middle-aged men contemplating the ways family could break your heart. Your mother was a good woman, Marcus said eventually. She didn't deserve what happened to her. No, I agreed. She didn't. Mom had died 6 months after Ryan's funeral. A massive stroke that the doctors attributed to uncontrolled hypertension and stress. But I knew better. For 6 months, I'd watched her deteriorate, watched the grief consume her from the inside out. She'd stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped caring about anything except the son she'd lost. The night before her stroke, I'd found her in Ryan's old bedroom, holding his high school football jersey, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "My baby," she'd whispered. "My baby boy is gone." And Ryan had let her believe that. Had let her suffer, had let her die, all while hiding, somewhere waiting to run with, money he'd stolen from. People who loved him Friday arrived with the kind of crisp November cold that makes Seattle feel like it's built from gray concrete and broken promises. I met Sarah in a parking garage, too. Blocks from Jessica's building at 3:15 p.m. She fitted me with a wire so small and sophisticated I couldn't even feel it under my shirt. "Just have a normal conversation," Sarah instructed. "Play the concerned uncle. Ask about Lucas, about their plans, about how she's managing. If she mentions money, follow that thread. If she seems nervous, press gently. Don't accuse her of anything outright. Let her talk. And if Ryan shows up, he won't. According to the surveillance footage, he hasn't been there during daylight hours in months. He's too careful for that. But if he does..." Sarah tapped the radio clip to her belt. "We'll be in the building in under 30 seconds. I nodded, my mouth dry despite drinking 3 bottles of water that morning. "Let's do this." Jessica's apartment was on the 4th floor, a modest 2-bedroom she'd rented shortly after Ryan's supposed death. I'd been inside maybe a dozen times over the past 3 years, each visit brief and uncomfortable, Jessica always seeming anxious to get me out. As I climbed the stairs, I noticed 2 things I'd missed before. First, the security camera at the 3rd floor landing, positioned perfectly to capture anyone coming or going from 4B. Second, how quiet the building was at 4 p.m. on a Friday. Most residents still at work. Perfect for clandestine meetings in the middle of the night. Knocked at 4:02 p.m. Heard footsteps inside. A child's voice asking something. Jessica's muffled response. Then the door opened. Jessica stood there looking exactly like someone who'd spent 3 years pretending to be a widow. Dark jeans, oversized sweater, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She'd gained weight, which was noticeable, only because I'd known her since she was 24 and Ryan had first brought her home for Thanksgiving. But her eyes were what struck me. Calculating, wary. The eyes of someone with secrets. "Zin," she said flatly. "You're late. It's 4:02. Like I said, late." She stepped back, not quite inviting me in, but not blocking my entry either. Lucas was on the living room floor surrounded by Lego sets, building something elaborate and colorful. He looked up when I entered, and his face lit up with genuine joy that made my chest ache. "Uncle Zin." He scrambled to his feet and hugged my waist. "I haven't seen you in forever." "Hey, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "What are you building?" "A spaceship. It's going to Mars. Want to help?" "I'd love to." I glanced at Jessica. "If that's okay." She shrugged, already moving toward the kitchen. "I need to make dinner anyway." "Don't get him too excited." I sat on the floor with Lucas and let him explain the intricate details of his Mars mission, while my mind cataloged everything in the apartment. The furniture was nicer than it should be for someone barely scraping by. New television, expensive sound system, kitchen appliances that looked upgraded. The kind of things you buy when you have disposable income, not when you're struggling to pay rent. After 15 minutes, Lucas got absorbed in his building and I stood, wandered toward the kitchen where Jessica was chopping vegetables with methodical precision. "He's getting big," I said casually. "How's school going?" "Fine. Still planning to stay in Seattle." Her knife paused mid-chop, just for a fraction of a second. "Why wouldn't we?" "Just asking. I know the rent's been tough with everything. Thought maybe you'd consider moving somewhere cheaper. Closer to your family in California. We're managing," she said curtly. "The $1,000 helps?" "Obviously." I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice conversational, concerned. "I've been thinking, Jessica. It's been 3 years. Maybe it's time we talked about long-term plans. For Lucas, I mean. His education, his future. What about it?" "Well, I was thinking I could set up a trust fund. Put some money aside for college. But I'd need to know your plans. Where you're thinking Lucas will be in 10 years. "What? We're fine," she interrupted sharply. "We don't need your money for that. But you need it for rent? Her eyes flashed, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just trying to understand. You've told me for 3 years that things are tight, that you can barely afford groceries, that every dollar matters. But you've also turned down my offers to help with budgeting. To look at your finances, to... My finances are none of your business. Zin, they are when I'm contributing to them, I said, still gentle but pressing. I'm not accusing you of anything, Jessica. I'm just trying to help. I'm family. She set down the knife, turned to face me fully. You want to know the truth? Fine. The truth is your $1,000 barely makes a dent. Ryan left us with nothing. Less than nothing. There were debts nobody knew about, expenses nobody warned me about. I've been working 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. What jobs? I asked. You've never mentioned working. Another pause. Another calculation behind her eyes. Remote work, data entry. It's not important. Then why not tell me? Why keep it secret? Because I don't need your pity. Zen. I don't need you checking up on me every 5 minutes, making me feel like I'm doing something wrong by surviving without your dead brother. The bitterness in her voice was real. I'd give her that, but something about the performance felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced this conversation in her mirror. I'm not checking up on you, I said. I'm caring about my nephew. I'm honoring my brother's memory. Your brother's memory, she repeated, and suddenly her expression shifted into something uglier. You want to know about Ryan's memory? Your perfect golden boy brother who could do no wrong? He was a liar. Zin. He was selfish and reckless, and he left me, holding the bag for all his mistakes. What mistakes? All of them. The money he borrowed, the promises he made, the people he screwed over. I spent 6 months after he died just trying to figure out what he'd destroyed. Why? Didn't you tell me? I asked, and I meant it genuinely. Why didn't you let me help clean up his mess? Because your family had already been through enough, she said. And for a moment I glimpsed something real beneath the performance. Your mother was destroyed. You were barely functioning. I wasn't going to pile more grief on top of that by telling you Ryan wasn't the hero you thought he was, but you took my money. Anyway, you offered it. I needed it. End of story. Lucas called from the living room. Something about a Lego piece he couldn't find. Jessica moved to help him, and I stood in her kitchen listening to the wire under my shirt, wondering if we'd gotten enough, if any of this would be enough to prove what I suspected. When Jessica returned, I tried a different angle. Are you planning to stay in Seattle long term? Because if you're thinking of moving, I'd want to maintain a relationship with Lucas, maybe set up regular visits, holidays, that kind of thing. We're not moving, she said automatically. Then, catching herself, at least not anytime soon. But eventually? Maybe, I don't know. Why are you so interested in this? Because you're my family, Jessica. Lucas is my nephew, and I need to know he's going to be okay. Something in my tone must have alarmed her, because her entire demeanor changed, became defensive, hostile. Lucas is fine. We're fine. And honestly, Zen, I think it's time for you to go. Lucas needs to eat dinner and get ready for bed. It's 4:30. He has an early morning tomorrow. Jessica, please leave. I looked at Lucas, still absorbed in his Lego spaceship, completely unaware of the storm building around him. I wanted to grab him, wanted to tell him everything, wanted to save him from whatever his mother was planning. But Sarah's voice echoed in my mind. Don't tip them off. Trust the process. Okay, I said quietly. I'll go. But Jessica, whatever you're planning, whatever you think is going to happen, think about Lucas. Think about what's best for him. Her face went pale, just for a second. Get out. I left without saying goodbye to Lucas, my heart breaking with every step down those stairs. As soon as I was outside the building, Sarah was beside me, walking fast toward her unmarked car 3 blocks away. We got it, she said. The part about Ryan leaving her with debts, about him screwing people over, combined with the financial records, the fake death certificate, the surveillance footage. We have enough for warrants. When? I demanded. Sunday morning, 6:09 a.m. We hit the apartment before they're awake, before they have a chance to run or destroy evidence. We'll have family services there for Lucas. We'll have everything coordinated. And Ryan? We've had someone watching a storage facility in Georgetown since yesterday. Jessica's been making trips there twice a week. We think that's where Ryan's hiding, or at least where he's keeping supplies. We'll get him too, Sunday. Morning arrived with the kind of Cold rain that makes you question every life choice that brought you to Seattle. I met Sarah and 6 other officers at 5:45 a.m. in the parking lot of Jessica's building. Everyone was grim, professional, wearing body armor and determination in equal measure. Zin. "You stay in the car," Sarah ordered. "This is police business now. You're a civilian witness." Nothing more. I wanted to argue. Wanted to be there when they arrested Jessica. Wanted to see her face when she realized her entire scheme had collapsed. But I knew Sarah was right. I'd already pushed boundaries by wearing the wire, by conducting what was essentially an undercover investigation without training or authorization. So I stayed in Sarah's car, watching through rain-streaked windows as officers positioned themselves around the building at 6 a.m. precisely. 4 officers entered the building through the front entrance. 2 more covered the back exit. Sarah wore a body camera that transmitted to a tablet in the car, and I watched the grainy feed as they climbed the stairs, reached the 4th floor, positioned themselves outside apartment 4B. Sarah knocked. "Seattle police." "Open the door." Silence. Then footsteps, rushed and panicked. More knocking. "Jessica Sullivan, this is Seattle police. We have a warrant. Open the door now or we're coming in." The door opened. Jessica stood there in pajamas, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear that was finally, undeniably real. "What's going on?" "Jessica Sullivan, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy." Sarah began reading. Miranda rights while 2 officers moved past her into the apartment. I heard Lucas crying in the background, confused and scared, and my hands clenched into fists. "Where's Ryan?" Sarah demanded. "Ryan's dead," Jessica said automatically. The lie she'd told so many times. It came out smooth despite the handcuffs clicking around her wrists. "We know he's alive. We have footage. We have financial records. Tell us where he is, and this goes easier for you." Jessica's face crumpled. Not with grief, with rage. "You don't understand. He made me do this. He threatened me. I didn't have a choice, so he is alive." Realizing her mistake, Jessica's mouth snapped shut. "I want a lawyer." They led her out of the apartment, past neighbors who'd emerged in bathrobes and confusion, down the stairs to a waiting police car. A family services worker arrived to take custody of Lucas temporarily, and watching that 7-year-old boy being led away crying for his mother was one of the hardest things I've ever witnessed. But they didn't have Ryan. The storage facility in Georgetown was empty. When officers raided it 10 minutes later, just some old furniture and boxes of clothes. Ryan had either been tipped off or had moved locations. And for the next 6 hours, Seattle police tore apart every lead trying to find my brother. They found him at 3:47 p.m. in a motel in Everett, 30 miles north of Seattle, registered under the name Marcus Reeves, the same name from the Mexico City flight Sarah had flagged. When officers knocked on that motel room door, Ryan opened it and immediately tried to run. He made it maybe 15 feet before being tackled in the parking lot, handcuffed and read his rights, while rain poured down and guests recorded everything on their phones. I wasn't there for his arrest. But Sarah sent me the booking photo an hour later. Ryan looked older, thinner, with a beard that didn't quite hide the scar above his left eyebrow. He looked like exactly what he was. A man who'd been living in shadows for 3 years, who'd destroyed his family to escape consequences, who'd chosen cowardice over courage at every opportunity. Sarah called me at 6:30 p.m. "We've got them both. They're being processed now. Initial interviews are going about how you'd expect. Jessica's blaming Ryan for everything, saying she was coerced and manipulated. Ryan's claiming he had to fake his death because he owed money to dangerous people, and it was the only way to protect his family." "Is any of that true?" I asked. "About the debts?" "Yes, about dangerous people." "Maybe. We're still investigating. But here's what I can confirm. Ryan set up that shell company. Ryan arranged the fake death certificate. And Ryan has been actively draining money from both you and another source we're still tracking down. Jessica was complicit, absolutely. She knew he was alive. She collected the money. She planned to run with him. But Ryan was the architect. What happens now?" "Arraignment Monday morning. Prosecutors are charging Ryan with fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, and about 6 other things. Jessica's getting most of the same charges. If convicted, they're each looking at anywhere from 5 to 15 years federal prison. And Lucas? Temporary custody is going to you if you want it. You're his uncle. You've been financially supporting him. and you have no criminal record. Child Services will do a home study. But assuming everything checks out, Lucas can live with you until the courts determine permanent custody. I sat in my truck outside that police station until after dark, trying to process everything that had happened in the span of 1 week. My brother was alive. My brother was a liar. My brother was going to prison. And I was about to become a father figure to a traumatized 7-year-old who'd just watched his entire world explode. The next 6 months were a legal tornado. Ryan and Jessica were both denied bail due to flight risk, given that they'd literally been planning to flee to Mexico when arrested. Their trials were separate but linked, and I spent countless hours giving testimony, providing evidence, sitting in courtrooms, watching lawyers dissect every detail of my family's catastrophe. The full truth emerged slowly, pieced together from bank records, witness testimony, and Ryan's eventually detailed confession. He'd gotten involved in cryptocurrency speculation in 2019, lost everything, then borrowed heavily, trying to win it back. By March 2021, he owed $83,000 to various creditors, including some genuinely dangerous people who'd made legitimate threats against him and Jessica. Faking his death had seemed like the only solution. He'd found David Morrison through online forums, where people discussed disappearing. Morrison ran a small operation creating false documents for desperate people, charging $15,000 for a complete death certificate package. Ryan had paid with the last of his borrowed money, staged his death in Alaska where bodies were frequently lost to the elements, and vanished into hiding. For 3 years, Ryan had lived in various motels and storage units around Seattle, working cash jobs under his fake identity, slowly rebuilding finances while Jessica collected money from me and from Ryan's own life insurance policy that had paid out $75,000. They'd planned to wait until Lucas was old enough to travel without drawing attention, then disappear to Mexico, where extradition is complicated and American justice has limited reach. I never meant for Mom to die, Ryan told the court during his sentencing hearing, and I almost believed the tears in his eyes. I thought she'd grieve but recover. I thought she was stronger. If I'd known the stroke would happen, I would have told her I was alive. I swear I would have, but he hadn't told her. He'd let her die thinking her son was dead. Let her suffer for 6 months before that final stroke. Let her be buried believing a lie. In August, Ryan was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Jessica got 8 years as an accomplice, with credit for cooperation. David Morrison, the document forger, got 15 years after. Investigators connected him to 17 other fake deaths across North America. The life insurance company sued to recover the $75,000 they'd paid Jessica, and additional civil suits from Ryan's creditors meant that whatever money they'd hidden was going to be seized and distributed. I never got my $36,000 back. The courts designated me as a creditor in the bankruptcy proceedings, but there were dozens of other creditors ahead of me, all owed larger sums. By the time the assets were liquidated and distributed, I received a check for $3,200 and a letter explaining that's all that remained after legal fees and priority claims. But I did get Lucas. Permanent custody was granted in September after extensive home studies and evaluations. I bought a 3-bedroom house in Greenwood with a yard big enough for a kid to play in, hired a child psychologist to help Lucas process trauma, and started the impossible task of rebuilding trust with a boy who'd learned that the adults he loved were capable of devastating betrayal. "Do you hate my dad?" Lucas asked me one evening while we were building a model rocket at the kitchen table. He was 8 now, had grown 3 inches, was starting to smile again sometimes. I thought carefully about my answer. I hate what he did. I'm angry about the lies and the hurt he caused. But he's still my brother, and he's still your father. People can do terrible things and still be worth loving. It's complicated. That doesn't make sense, Lucas said, and he was right. I know, buddy. A lot of adult stuff doesn't make sense. Are you going to lie to me? The question hit hard. No. I promise I'm going to be honest with you, even when the truth is hard. And if you ever think I'm not being honest, you can call me on it, and we'll talk. Deal? Deal, Lucas said, and went back to gluing fins on his rocket. People ask me what I learned from all this. They want some neat lesson about trust or family or forgiveness. But the truth isn't neat. The truth is that 64% of financial fraud is committed by family members, that the people closest to us have the most power to cause harm. And that blind trust is just another word for vulnerability. I learned to verify things that seemed questionable. I learned to ask for documentation, to check records, to not accept grief as an excuse to avoid asking hard questions. When someone tells you they're struggling financially, look at the evidence. When someone asks for money month after month, year after year, examine where that money actually goes. Trust is earned through consistent behavior over time, not through blood relation or shared history. Learn that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting, that you can love someone and still hold them accountable for their actions, that protecting yourself isn't the same as being heartless. But most importantly, I learned that the only person you can truly control is yourself. Ryan made his choices. Jessica made hers. My mother grieved the way she needed to grieve. And I, for 3 years, made the choice to trust without verifying, to help without questioning, to be the good brother and the good son at the expense of my own financial security and mental health. Would I have done things differently if I could go back? Absolutely. Would I have demanded to see Ryan's body? Would I have investigated the company that supposedly employed him? Would I have asked harder questions about where my money was going? Yes to all of it, but I can't go back. None of us can. We can only move forward with the knowledge we've gained through pain. It's been 3 years since Ryan's arrest. Lucas is 11 now, thriving in middle school, playing soccer, building increasingly complex Lego sets. He writes letters to his parents sometimes, supervised visits that happen twice a year under strict conditions. Jessica will be released in 5 years. Ryan in 9. What happens then? How Lucas will navigate relationships with parents who destroyed his childhood? I don't know. What I do know is that every month on the 1st, when I used to send that $1,000 to Jessica, I now deposit money into a locked education fund for Lucas that he can't access until he's 18. I'm teaching him about finances, about questioning authority, about verifying information before believing it. I'm showing him that family means taking care of each other, but also means holding each other accountable. And sometimes late at night, I still think about Marcus Wilson stopping me that November morning. Think about how close I came to never discovering the truth, to sending money indefinitely while my brother hid in motels planning his escape. I think about what would have happened if Jessica and Ryan had made it to Mexico, if they disappeared with over $100,000 of stolen money, if Lucas had grown up in a foreign country believing a lie. The human cost of deception is never simple. It's not just the money lost or the time wasted. It's the trust destroyed, the relationships fractured, the innocence stolen from a child who learned too young that people lie. That family hurts you, that love isn't enough to prevent betrayal. If you're reading this and thinking about your own life, about the people you trust and the money you give, and the questions you don't ask because you're afraid of the answers, I want you to understand something crucial. Asking questions doesn't make you suspicious or untrusting. It makes you wise. Verifying information doesn't mean you don't believe in people. It means you believe in truth. The $36,000 I lost was significant, but it wasn't the real cost. The real cost was 3 years of my life spent grieving a man who wasn't dead. 3 years of my mother's final days poisoned by unnecessary grief. 3 years of Lucas growing up without his uncle's full presence because I was too busy working extra shifts to pay for a lie. Don't let blind trust cost you what it cost me. Verify, question, investigate, protect yourself and the people who depend on you, because the person asking you for help, taking your money, or telling you everything's fine might be the same person planning to disappear with everything you've built. And if someone tries to make you feel guilty for asking questions, for wanting verification, for protecting yourself, that's not love. That's manipulation. Real family, real love, doesn't hide in shadows and work in secrets. Real love can withstand scrutiny because it has nothing to hide. Marcus Reeves is now serving 15 years in a different prison. I've never spoken to him, never written to him, never acknowledged his existence. The man who helped my brother fake his death, who profited from desperate people's suffering, who enabled 17 families to endure unnecessary grief, deserves exactly nothing from me. But David Morrison, the document forger's real name, taught me one final lesson. There are people in this world who will help others destroy their own families for profit. People who view human suffering as a business opportunity, and they can only operate because desperate people make desperate choices, and trusting people don't ask enough questions. I'm not a desperate person anymore. I'm not a trusting person either. I'm something in between, cautiously hopeful, carefully generous, skeptically open. I help people, but I verify their stories. I give money, but I track where it goes. I love my family, but I don't let love blind me to reality. Lucas asked me last week if I still think about Uncle Ryan, if I still miss having a brother, and I told him the truth. I miss the brother I thought I had. But that person was never real. The real Ryan Sullivan is a man who chose to fake his death rather than face his problems, who let his mother die believing a lie, who stole from family, and who would have abandoned his own son for money and freedom. So, you don't love him anymore? Lucas asked. I love who he could have been, I answered. I'm heartbroken about who he chose to be. Instead, that's the lesson that nobody wants to hear. Sometimes people choose to be the villain in your story. Sometimes family is the threat, not the safety net. Sometimes the people you'd trust with your life are the ones stealing it piece by piece, month by month, lie by lie, and the only protection against that kind of betrayal is vigilance, verification, and the courage to ask uncomfortable questions especially when you don't want to know the answers. If there's someone in your life right now taking money from you, month after month, if there's a story you've accepted without verification, if there's a relationship built on trust that's never been tested, I'm asking you to look closer, not with suspicion but with clarity, not with anger but with wisdom, because somewhere out there, someone is reading this and recognizing themselves in my story. Someone is realizing their brother, their sister, their parent, their friend might not be who they claim to be. Someone is about to discover a truth they don't want to know but desperately need to understand. And if that person is you, if you're reading this and feeling that sick recognition in your stomach, that cold certainty that something's wrong even though you can't quite name it yet, then do what I wish I'd done 3 years earlier. Investigate, verify, protect yourself and the people who depend on you. The truth will hurt, but living a lie hurts worse, costs more, and steals time you can never recover. I'm Zin. My brother faked his death, stole from me for 3 years, let our mother die believing a lie, and planned to abandon his son for money, and I almost never found out. Because I trusted family more than I trusted evidence. Don't make my mistake. Don't let love make you blind. Don't let trust make you vulnerable. Ask the hard questions. Demand the uncomfortable answers. And if someone tells you you're wrong for wanting proof, for seeking truth, for protecting yourself, remember this. People who have nothing to hide don't fear scrutiny. They welcome it because transparency builds trust. The people who fear questions are the ones with answers they don't want you to know.